Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues episode 95. Phil Scott is launching a website to spur economic development. That is, Vermont's getting a new online presence. Vermont has tried this before, we've built sort of a loose web apparatus. I remember this from years ago. They were like advertising it. I think this was the relatively early 2000s. Like, oh, new Vermont website, you can navigate to this and that. There's one for tourism. As far as I know, it didn't actually accomplish much. That is, it's a presence that's there. It's necessary to have, like, a state website. It's necessary to have a tourist portal. It's necessary to have, like, now, you know, here's the animals that live in Vermont. Here's a list of our lakes in order of size. Stuff like that, like the facts and figures. You have to have that. Everybody else does. It's sort of keeping up with the Joneses, but it didn't really bring any net benefit because everyone else was doing the same thing. There's only a certain amount of tourist money and investment to be had. Vermont at most maintains sort of the amount of leverage that it already has. It's kind of wonky that we don't have a website for this already for this basic purpose. So I'm not sure exactly what this is supposed to do. But this has been the state government's sort of thing for some time now. Instead of tackling the fundamental problem of why we don't have enough job growth, why, you know, wages in some areas are low, you know, why the cost of living is high, why everything's so expensive, instead of actually talking about these things and reforming taxes or, you know, trying to get something going so people come and actually build something in the state, they would rather build a website or put out an ad campaign, like I think Scott a couple months ago announced that, oh, we're going to have like a campaign and we're going to try to attract people to the state by telling them, hey, Vermont's open for business. Now, Vermont is not open for business, though. That's the problem. Because all these little townships, they're not open for business. They won't zone you. They won't give you the ability to build anything, which means you're going to use an existing structure. You might not find any existing structure that's proper for what you want to do. You're like, well, I need to have a server farm. The only place that they're offering me is like this old late 1800s era red painted barn. And because it's a historic site, I can't even like do anything with it without 10,000 pages of paperwork. Well, no shit, you're not going to locate your business there, especially when you see the tax rate in the state. You're going to go elsewhere. If you stay in the state at all, it's not going to be in that community. So part of it's not the state at all, but the state should do something about the townships, and preferably about itself. We have too much legalism. We don't have enough infrastructure. The tax rate is too burdensome. People can't get ahead in the state of Vermont. Making a website about economic development is not going to change that. Why don't you free up some land on the perimeters of these communities, get some growth going, number one. Number two, redevelop some downtowns, make them more efficient so at least those, they have full access to everything that they need to be good places for some sort of light industry, something beyond some cottage style business. We can have that in Vermont. Burlington proves it. We've got some of that here in Rutland as well. We have a little bit more infrastructure on this side of the state than the other side. Most of the eastern half of the state's basically undeveloped for the most part. What have you got over there? Well, we've got White River Junction and Brattleboro, these small mill towns. That's what you've got. What else am I looking at that is actually over there? Killington's like smack dab in the south central portion of the state. That's about as far east as you can go, that or maybe the Montpelier Barre area. Beyond that, the other side is basically wilderness. It's vineyards and cottage industries. Vineyards, somebody makes homemade cheese and, you know, sells it for 10 times the price by having a Vermont sticker on it. Somebody sells Vermont grapes and wine. Some person retired and now they do paintings and they sell them for $2,500 a pop. That's what they do over there. Over here is a little bit more, you know, Champlain Valley region down, you know, through here and honestly almost into Bennington as well. That's basically the economic muscle of the state as far as something being accomplished. But even here, you still get the high state tax rates. You've still got a lot of local fees and ordinances and regulatory bullshit that applies, and so things are still strangulated. Ease up on it. Why don't we just structure ourselves after New Hampshire? Now, let me ask you this. New Hampshire, lower tax rates, no sales tax, by the way. I think no property tax, or very low, compared to this state anyway. You go over to New Hampshire. Is New Hampshire desperately impoverished and illiterate and deforested because they happen to have a more pro-business model? Or are they simply our much more wealthy cousin with more infrastructure? They're our much more wealthy cousin with more infrastructure and more of a libertarian bent as well. Good for them. They're succeeding. They're semi-competitive on a national stage. They're certainly competitive with Massachusetts and Maine. And they're way, way out competing us. We've got bullshit. We've got tourism. Making a website's not going to change that. It's not our location. We have the potential to build the infrastructure, the roads and so forth that we need to have efficient shipping so people want to move in. We could move towards, let's wine and dine tech, because maybe the amount of actual infrastructure necessary for that, beyond, of course, the energy needed, is lesser. Of course, you're not shipping necessarily a physical product, you're shipping data. Okay, well, put up some lines, hook up some satellites, do whatever the fuck you need to do, make Vermont attractive. We can make thousands or tens of thousands of jobs this way. Some of them will be high paying. It's like the video I made yesterday on Target. Target moves into Burlington, will create 75 jobs. Yes, but 70 of them will be minimum wage. How is that helping the local economy? How is it helping Vermonters? It's not. Helps a couple people. You know what? Probably they were already managers before. Some other business went under, and they were unemployed for a while. And then they'll be the manager, the new general manager of the new Target store, and they'll make their 50K or whatever that general manager is supposed to make. That's the economic reality of Vermont. It's not 100% bleak. It's not like there's nothing here, although sometimes it looks like that depending on where you are in Vermont. But it's not great, nationally speaking. It's just not. In the 3 months that I lived in southern Texas, I think there were more new developments that went up there than went up here in the last 3 or 4 years. That's really something when you think about it. We don't have to operate the way we do as a state. We are capable of growing. Look, like 90% of the state's totally undeveloped anyway. Let's keep it close to that, but can we free up like 2% of our land area around some of these, not so rural areas, develop them a little bit, have a little bit more, a few businesses, a few new homes, a little bit more going on in the downtowns of like Rutland, Bennington, Brattleboro, places like that? I'd say we can coexist with the nature we've got. We're not going to run out anytime soon. They're sitting there harping on, we're losing 1,000 acres of forest a year. Well, yeah, it's okay. It's going to take several centuries for us to actually destroy a substantial total. By the way, 100 years ago, all that land was deforested anyway. All of our growth is new growth, so stop worrying so much about it. We're certainly capable of balancing things. We can grow a little bit more, at least as a state, be kind of competitive. No one's expecting us to be the next, Houston area, exploding with growth. But can we be a little more like New Hampshire, maybe? They're not all deforested and messed up. Let's be more like New Hampshire. That's about all. Peace out.